If you've been itching to get your hands dirty after the slower winter months, this is your moment. February offers this sweet spot where the soil is workable. The risk of hard freezes is dropping, and you can really set yourself up for months of continuous harvests. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just getting started, the plants we're covering today are proven performers for our zone. We're going to walk through 8 vegetables and 2 flowers that absolutely thrive when planted in February here in Zone 9. Each one has its own quirks and requirements, but they all share one thing in common. February is their time to shine. So grab your planting calendar and let's dive into what should be going into your garden this month. 1. Potatoes. Let's kick things off with potatoes, and here's a fun fact. Valentine's Day, February 14th, is the traditional potato planting day in many Zone 9 areas. There's something poetic about planting spuds on the day of love, probably because we all love potatoes in just about every form imaginable. Potatoes are a cool season crop that needs to get established before the heat really kicks in. The tubers develop best when soil temperatures are between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is exactly what we're working with in February. If you wait too long and plant in March or April, you'll be fighting against rising temperatures that can stress the plants and eliminate your yield. For starting potatoes, you'll want to use certified seed potatoes rather than grocery store potatoes, which are often treated to prevent sprouting. Cut your seed potatoes into pieces that each have at least 2 eyes, making sure each piece is about the size of a golf ball. Let these pieces cure for a day or 2 so the cut surfaces can callus over, which helps prevent rot in the soil. When it comes to soil preparation, potatoes are heavy feeders. Work in some well-aged compost before planting, aiming for about 2 to 3 inches, mixed into the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. Plant your potato pieces about 4 inches deep and 12 to 15 inches apart in rows that are spaced about 3 feet apart. As the plants grow, you'll want to hill up soil around the stems. This hilling process is crucial because it protects developing tubers from sunlight, which would turn them green and bitter. One thing to keep in mind with Zone 9 potatoes is that you're working with a tighter window than gardeners in cooler climates. Your goal is to get a full harvest before consistent temperatures hit the high 80s. Early and mid-season varieties work best for us. Look for varieties that mature in 70 to 90 days. Water consistently throughout the growing season, aiming for about 1 to 2 inches per week. Potatoes need steady moisture, especially once they start flowering, which signals that tubers are forming underground. However, don't overwater, as soggy soil can lead to rot and disease issues. We've got 9 more plants to cover, and the next one is a garden staple that most people get wrong when it comes to timing. 2. Tomatoes. Tomatoes are probably the most popular vegetable in home gardens, and here's something critical to understand about growing them in Zone 9. Mid-February is actually when you need to get transplants into the ground, not when you start seeds. This timing surprises a lot of people, but it's essential for success in our zone. The reason for this early planting date is that tomatoes stop setting fruit once temperatures consistently hit the high 80s. In Zone 9, that happens much earlier than gardeners in other zones experience. If you want a productive spring tomato harvest, you need sturdy transplants going into the garden or large containers right now in mid-February. Now, if you started seeds back in December or January, your transplants should be ready to go into the ground now. But if you didn't start seeds that early, don't worry. Head to your local nursery and purchase healthy transplants. Look for stocky plants that are 6 to 8 inches tall with deep green leaves and thick stems. Avoid leggy, pale plants or anything that already has flowers or fruit, as these often struggle to establish well. When preparing your planting site, keep in mind that tomatoes are heavy feeders and need rich soil. Work plenty of compost into your beds, about 3 to 4 inches mixed into the top 8 to 10 inches of soil. Tomatoes prefer a pH between 6 and 6.8. You can also add bone meal for phosphorus and calcium, which supports strong root development and fruit production. When transplanting, plant tomatoes deeper than they were growing in their containers. You can bury the stem up to the first set of true leaves. Tomatoes have the unique ability to form roots along their buried stems, which creates a stronger, more extensive root system. Space plants about 24 to 36 inches apart, depending on whether you're growing determinate or indeterminate varieties. Indeterminate varieties, which continue growing and producing all season, need more space and definitely require sturdy stakes or cages. Water transplants deeply and keep soil consistently moist, about 1 to 2 inches per week, as plants establish. One of the secrets to success with tomatoes in Zone 9 is variety selection. You absolutely need to choose heat-tolerant varieties that can set fruit even as temperatures start climbing. Varieties like Phoenix, Heatwave 2, Surefire, and Heatmaster are specifically bred to perform in warmer climates. Speaking of warm season plants that need to go in the ground now, there's another one that shares similar timing requirements with tomatoes. 3. Peppers. If you're starting tomatoes indoors in February, you absolutely should be starting peppers at the same time. Actually, peppers need even more time than tomatoes, often requiring 8 to 10 weeks before they're ready to transplant. This makes early to mid-February the perfect starting window. As with tomatoes, if you haven't pre-started peppers in December or January, buy transplants from your garden center for planting outside in mid-February. When it comes to transplanting peppers, they appreciate similar soil conditions to tomatoes, but with a couple of differences. Peppers prefer a slightly more neutral pH, around 6.5 to 7. When preparing your beds, work in compost just like with tomatoes. Peppers are particularly responsive to calcium. If you've had blossom end rot issues in the past, add some bone meal or crushed eggshells to your planting holes. One key difference between peppers and tomatoes in Zone 9 is that peppers actually handle our heat better. Sweet bell peppers, jalapenos, serranos, and many other varieties are perfectly suited to our long, warm growing season. The biggest challenge with peppers in Zone 9 is getting them established before temperatures get too high. Pepper plants put in the garden in mid-February have time to develop strong root systems before the heat arrives. Plants that go in too late struggle to establish and often just sit there, sulking through the hottest months. Now, while we're getting those warm season crops started, there's a cool season crop we can be direct sowing right now that'll give you harvest in just a few weeks. 4. Lettuce. Lettuce is the ultimate cool season crop, and February is prime time for getting it in the ground in Zone 9. Unlike tomatoes and peppers, lettuce goes directly into the garden, and it's one of the fastest crops you can grow, with many varieties ready to harvest in just 30 to 60 days. The beautiful thing about lettuce in February is that our temperatures are perfect. Lettuce germinates best when soil temperatures are between 45 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and it grows most vigorously when air temperatures are in the 60s and low 70s. That's exactly what February typically delivers in Zone 9. Starting lettuce from seed is incredibly easy. You can broadcast seeds over prepared soil and lightly rake them in, or you can plant in rows about a 1/4 inch deep. Lettuce seeds are tiny, so don't bury them too deeply. They need some light exposure to germinate well. Space rows about 12 to 18 inches apart. Lettuce has shallow roots and doesn't require heavy feeding like tomatoes. It prefers well-drained, organic-rich soil. Add compost to your planting area. One of the keys to success with lettuce, especially in Zone 9, is succession planting. Instead of planting your entire lettuce crop at once, sow a new batch every 2 weeks through February and into early March. Watering is crucial for lettuce. Keep the soil consistently moist, especially during germination. Once plants are established, they still need regular water, about 1 inch per week. In Zone 9, you're working against the calendar with lettuce. Once daytime temperatures consistently hit the upper 80s, lettuce becomes challenging. The plants bolt, sending up flower stalks and turning the leaves bitter. This is why February planting is so perfect. You get your crop established and harvested before the real heat arrives. For the absolute best flavor, harvest lettuce in the morning after the dew has dried, but before the day heats up. The leaves are crisper and more flavorful then. While lettuce is giving you quick spring harvests, there's another cool season crop you can plant now that's equally suited to February in Zone 9, and it's one of the most nutritious vegetables you can grow. 5. Broccoli. Broccoli is a powerhouse vegetable, and February is an excellent time to get it going in Zone 9. You have 2 options. You can start seeds indoors for transplanting, or you can direct sow, depending on your specific microclimate and how early your spring tends to arrive. Broccoli seeds germinate quickly, usually within 5 to 10 days, and seedlings are ready to transplant in about 4 to 6 weeks. If you're direct sowing, you can plant broccoli seeds in mid to late February in many Zone 9 locations. Plant them half an inch deep and about 3 inches apart. Later, you'll thin seedlings to about 18 inches apart to give plants room to develop those large heads. Soil preparation is important for broccoli. It's a heavy feeder from the cabbage family, and these plants demand fertile soil. Work in plenty of compost, about 3 to 4 inches mixed into the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. Broccoli prefers a pH between 6 and 7, but it's pretty adaptable. One amendment that's particularly important for broccoli and other cabbage family plants is nitrogen. These are hungry plants that need steady nitrogen throughout their growth. When transplanting or thinning seedlings, side dress with compost or apply a balanced organic fertilizer. Some gardeners like to add blood meal or alfalfa meal for an extra nitrogen boost. Broccoli needs consistent moisture, especially as heads are forming. Aim for about 1 to 2 inches of water per week. Inconsistent watering can cause the heads to become uneven or cause premature flowering. In Zone 9, timing is everything with broccoli. The plants need to mature before temperatures consistently stay above 75 degrees during the day. Most broccoli varieties take 55 to 85 days to mature from transplant. When you see a nice tight head forming at the center of the plant, harvest it before the individual buds start to loosen and open. Cut the main head with about 6 inches of stem, and the plant will often produce smaller side shoots that you can harvest over the next several weeks. We're building a diverse cool season garden here, and the next vegetable is a root crop that's perfect for direct sowing right now. 6. Carrots. Carrots are one of the most rewarding vegetables to grow, especially in Zone 9 during February. There's something magical about pulling a perfect carrot from the soil, and the flavor of homegrown carrots absolutely blows away anything from the grocery store. Carrots germinate best when soil temperatures are between 50 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. But they grow most successfully when daytime temperatures are in the 60s and 70s. Much hotter, and the roots become woody and bitter. Starting carrots is different from the other vegetables we've covered because they absolutely must be direct sown. Carrots develop long tap roots that don't handle transplanting well. You need to plant them where they'll grow to maturity. Soil preparation is crucial for carrots. They need loose, well-draining soil that's free of rocks and clumps. If your soil is heavy clay, consider building raised beds or creating mounds of improved soil. Work the soil deeply, at least 12 inches down, loosening it thoroughly. Mix compost into your carrot bed, but avoid fresh manure or high nitrogen fertilizers. Sow seeds about a 1/4 inch deep in rows spaced 12 to 18 inches apart. Because the seeds are small and germination rates aren't always perfect, most gardeners overseed and thin later. One challenge with carrots is that they can take 10 to 20 days to germinate, and during that time, you need to keep the soil consistently moist. If the soil dries out, germination fails. Some gardeners cover the seeded row with a board or burlap to retain moisture, checking daily and removing the cover as soon as seedlings emerge. Once your carrots are up, thin them when they're about 2 inches tall. Thin to about 2 to 3 inches apart for standard varieties, or closer for smaller varieties. Carrots need about an inch of water per week once established. Keep watering consistent because fluctuations can cause the roots to crack or split. Different carrot varieties mature at different rates, ranging from 50 to 80 days. In Zone 9, you want to choose varieties that can mature before late spring heat arrives. Nantes, Danvers, and Chantenay types all perform well and are adaptable to various soil types. The cool thing about carrots is that they can handle a light frost, so in Zone 9, you have some flexibility with harvest timing. Many gardeners say carrots taste sweeter after exposure to cold temperatures. Speaking of cool season crops that love February in Zone 9, the next one is a classic that produces heavily in a relatively small space. 7. Peas. Peas are quintessential cool season crops, and February is absolutely the time to get them planted in Zone 9. There are 3 main types: English peas, which you shell and eat the seeds; snap peas, where you eat the whole pod and seed together; and snow peas, where you harvest the flat pods before the seeds develop. All 3 types thrive when planted in February in our zone. Peas are one of the easiest vegetables to grow from seed, and they're always direct sown. The seeds are large enough to handle easily, and they germinate reliably in cool soil. Peas can germinate in soil temperatures as low as 40 degrees Fahrenheit, though they'll sprout faster when soil is between 50 and 75 degrees. For planting, create a trench about 1 to 2 inches deep. Space seeds about 2 inches apart for bush varieties, and 1 inch apart for vining types, which you'll eventually thin. Cover with soil and water well. Peas typically germinate within 7 to 14 days. Soil preparation for peas is refreshingly simple compared to some of the heavier feeders we've discussed. Peas are legumes, which means they actually fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and add it to the soil. Because of this, they don't need nitrogen-rich fertilizers. Work compost into your pea bed, but keep it light, maybe an inch or two mixed in. Peas prefer a pH between 6 and 7.5. One amendment that benefits peas is phosphorus, which supports root development and pod production. You can add rock phosphate or bone meal when preparing the bed. The one thing peas absolutely need is good drainage. They're susceptible to root rot in soggy soil, so if your garden has drainage issues, consider planting peas in raised beds or mounds. Most pea varieties need some kind of support. Even bush types produce better with something to climb on. Peas are relatively drought-tolerant once established, but they produce best with consistent moisture, especially once they start flowering. Aim for about an inch of water per week. The critical time for watering is when pods are developing. In Zone 9, the challenge with peas is that they stop producing once temperatures get hot. Once daytime temperatures consistently hit the mid to upper 80s, pea plants shut down, flowers drop, and production stops. This is why February planting is so important. You're giving plants maximum time to grow and produce during optimal temperatures. Most pea varieties mature in 50 to 70 days. The key to extended harvest is picking regularly. The more you harvest, the more the plants produce. Once pods mature and you leave them on the vine, the plant thinks its job is done and stops flowering. Harvest English peas when pods are full and round but still bright green. Snap peas are ready when pods are plump and crisp. Snow peas should be harvested when pods are flat and before seeds develop significantly. We've covered some fantastic vegetables so far, but there's one more root crop that absolutely thrives when planted in February in Zone 9. 8. Beets. Beets are one of the most underrated vegetables in the home garden, and February is the perfect time to plant them in Zone 9. Whether you grow them for the sweet, earthy roots or the nutritious greens, or both, beets are incredibly productive and easy to grow. Like carrots, beets are a direct sow crop. They need to be planted where they'll mature, because transplanting disrupts the root development. Beets germinate best when soil temperatures are between 50 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, but they grow most successfully in the cooler temperatures of February and early spring in Zone 9. Here's an interesting thing about beet seeds. What looks like one seed is actually a cluster of multiple seeds. This means that even when you plant carefully, you'll get multiple seedlings emerging from each seed. Don't worry, you'll just thin them later. Soil preparation for beets is important. They need loose, well-draining soil that's been worked to at least 8 to 10 inches deep. Beets can handle a range of soil types, but they struggle in heavy clay. Work in compost to improve soil structure, aiming for about 2 to 3 inches mixed into the planting area. Beets aren't extremely heavy feeders, but they do appreciate balanced nutrition. Beets prefer a pH between 6 and 7.5, making them pretty adaptable to most garden soils. One thing to note is that beets struggle in acidic soil below 6. So if your soil runs acidic, consider adding some lime a few weeks before planting. Once your beet seedlings are about 2 inches tall, thin them to about 3 to 4 inches apart. Yes, this means pulling up a lot of tiny plants, but proper spacing is essential for good root development. The good news is that those thinned seedlings are delicious as microgreens in salads. Beets need consistent moisture throughout their growing season, especially as roots are sizing up. Aim for about 1 inch of water per week. Inconsistent watering can cause roots to become woody or develop growth rings that affect texture. Harvest beets when roots are between 1 and 3 inches in diameter. Larger beets can become woody and tough, especially if they've experienced heat stress. Don't forget about the greens. Beet greens are incredibly nutritious and delicious, similar to Swiss chard. You can harvest a few outer leaves throughout the growing season without harming root development. Now we've covered 8 fantastic vegetables that are perfect for February planting in Zone 9. But we're not quite done yet, because there are a couple of flowers that deserve space in your February. Garden. Not only do they add beauty, but they also serve important functions for your vegetable garden. Let me share 2 flowers that thrive when planted this month. 1. Snapdragons. Snapdragons are one of the most charming flowers you can grow, and February is the ideal time to get them established in Zone 9. These vertical bloomers add height and structure to garden beds, and they're perfect companions to many of the vegetables we've already discussed. Snapdragons are cool season annuals that absolutely thrive in the moderate temperatures of late winter and spring. They struggle in heat, which is why February planting is so perfect for Zone 9. You're giving plants maximum time to grow and bloom during optimal conditions. You have 2 options for snapdragons: starting seeds indoors or transplanting nursery plants. If you're starting from seed, begin them indoors about 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date, which means late January to early February for most of Zone 9. However, many gardeners find it easier to purchase transplants from local nurseries in February and get them directly into the garden. Snapdragon seeds are tiny and need light to germinate, so when starting indoors, press seeds gently onto the surface of moist seed starting mix without covering them. Keep the soil at about 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Germination usually takes 10 to 14 days. Once seedlings have several true leaves, you can transplant them to individual containers. For direct transplanting into the garden, February is ideal in Zone 9. The plants can handle our nighttime temperatures, which are usually above the mid-30s by this point. Snapdragons actually tolerate light frost, which makes them very forgiving. When preparing your soil for snapdragons, work in compost to improve soil structure and fertility. Snapdragons prefer well-draining soil with a pH between 6.2 and 7. They're not overly demanding feeders, but they appreciate soil that's been enriched with organic matter. Plant transplants about 6 to 10 inches apart, depending on the variety. Dwarf varieties that reach 8 to 12 inches can be planted closer, while tall varieties that reach 3 feet need more space. Water transplants well and keep soil consistently moist for the first couple of weeks as plants establish. One of the great things about snapdragons in a vegetable garden is that they attract beneficial insects, particularly bumblebees. Those tubular flowers are perfectly designed for bees to crawl into and pollinate. Having snapdragons near your vegetable crops can help with pollination of vegetables like tomatoes and peppers later in the season. Snapdragons bloom prolifically through spring in Zone 9. As temperatures climb into the high 80s and 90s, they'll eventually stop blooming and decline. But until then, they provide weeks of color in shades of red, pink, orange, yellow, white, and purple. To encourage continued blooming, deadhead spent flowers regularly. This prevents the plant from putting energy into seed production and encourages more flowering. If plants get leggy, you can pinch back growing tips to encourage bushier growth and more flower stalks. While snapdragons are adding vertical interest to your garden, there's one more flower that's absolutely essential for any vegetable garden, and it happens to be one of the easiest flowers to grow. 2. Marigolds. If there's one flower that belongs in every Zone 9 vegetable garden, it's marigolds. These cheerful, easy-to-grow flowers do more than just look pretty. They're workhorses that provide multiple benefits to your garden ecosystem. February is a great time to start marigolds in Zone 9, either from seed indoors or by direct sowing, once soil temperatures are consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, which happens in late February in most Zone 9 locations. Starting marigolds from seed is incredibly easy. These are some of the most beginner-friendly seeds you can grow. If starting indoors, plant seeds about a 1/4 inch deep in seed starting mix 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost date, which means late January to mid-February for Zone 9. Seeds germinate in just 5 to 7 days at temperatures between 70 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Once seedlings have their first true leaves, you can transplant them to larger containers or directly into the garden if temperatures are appropriate. Marigolds grow quickly and will be ready for the garden in about 4 to 6 weeks from seeding. For direct sowing in the garden, wait until late February when soil has warmed a bit. Plant seeds about a 1/4 inch deep and about 8 to 12 inches apart, depending on the variety. French marigolds stay compact at 6 to 12 inches tall, while African marigolds can reach 2 to 3 feet. Soil preparation for marigolds is simple. They're not fussy plants and actually prefer somewhat lean soil. Too much fertilizer causes lots of foliage growth, but fewer flowers. Work a light layer of compost into the planting area, about an inch or two. Marigolds tolerate a wide pH range from 6 to 7.5. One of the reasons marigolds are so valued in vegetable gardens is their reputation for deterring certain pests. The strong scent of marigold foliage is said to repel aphids, whiteflies, and some other pests. While the science on this is mixed, many gardeners swear by planting marigolds throughout their vegetable beds as companion plants. Marigolds are also excellent trap crops for spider mites and aphids. These pests are attracted to marigolds, which can draw them away from your vegetables. You can then deal with the pests on the marigolds rather than having them spread throughout your garden. Beyond pest management, marigolds are spectacular at attracting bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects that help pollinate your vegetable crops. One practical tip for marigolds in Zone 9. Plant them in strategic locations around your garden. Tuck them between tomato plants, around the edges of lettuce beds, near your snap peas, anywhere you want a splash of color and a potential pest deterrent. They're incredibly versatile and adapt to various locations as long as they get full sun. Wrapping it all up. February is truly one of the best months for Zone 9 gardeners. While gardeners in other parts of the country are still flipping through seed catalogs and dreaming of spring, you can be out there actively planting, starting seeds, and setting yourself up for months of harvests and blooms. The 10 plants we've covered today represent a mix of cool season and warm season crops, each with its own perfect timing for February planting. From potatoes going in on Valentine's Day, to lettuce and carrots being direct sown in the garden, from tomatoes and peppers starting their journey indoors, to snapdragons and marigolds adding beauty and functionality, this month is packed with opportunities. The key to success with all of these plants is understanding that in Zone 9, we're working with a unique window. Cool season crops need to be planted early enough to mature before heat arrives. Warm season crops need to be started early enough indoors so they're ready to transplant when conditions are right. Timing really is everything in our zone. So get out there this month and get planting. Whether you're putting seed potatoes in the ground on Valentine's Day, starting your tomato and pepper seeds under lights, direct sowing carrots and beets, or tucking marigold transplants around your garden beds, you're setting yourself up for success. Every seed planted in February is an investment in future harvests and blooms. That's all for now. Subscribe to see more.